everyone to this episode of Your Freedom's Hub, Accelerating Financial Freedom, where we help set you free financially. I'm your host, Jeff Cantor. Along with our special guest today, we are sponsored by the MPHWF.com, which is the MPHealthWealthFreedom.com website. We'll talk about that here momentarily. We are recording all of these for posterity, so we want to make sure you never miss an episode. You can certainly go right to this link, but what you do, it's going to end up taking you to the main page. So let's take a quick gander over there. So you're going to come to the main home page, but you'll notice if you are here and you hover over the home tab, you're going to see information, events, and continuing the conversation. Well, if we go to the information tab, here's where we're going to find all of the shows that are coming up. The two that are on Wednesdays, as well as this Thursday night series about your freedom in general and about doctors. This is 7 o'clock. Here's an ad for the one coming up tonight. And then also future guests and then the various links so that every weekend the videos are all posted. So every Monday morning you can come to any one of these various channels and see any and all these various videos. We also want to continue the conversation so when it's over, it doesn't end. You can then finish the video and then click on and learn more and connect with the people that gave that talk and find out a lot more about them. Here's a perfect example of one of the ways we work this location. You're going to find all the various links to their videos, a nice description of the person, possibly their PowerPoint or whatever their description was, their blog, how to work with them, how to become involved with their organization. We're also wanting you to be very cognizant of all the various issues that are out there and things you need to be aware of. So we have the Freedom site. Most importantly is the Fighting for Freedom. And this is very, very important for everybody to be aware of. These are the most important issue actions right now. You need to not pick one, but click on every one of these and help these organizations change legislation and change the direction of things in the country. And this is an ever-growing list of organizations that are supporting the idea of your individualized freedom. Now, we do have a special guest tonight because we are in our wealth series. So if you click onto the wealth tab, here you're going to find out all about the areas that affect your life financially, how you'll be able to get a free analysis, how you can participate in the debt network, and be able to see all the preceding episodes to catch up on what you might have lost, as well as some other outside videos you're going to find very interesting as well. Here's an example of the one we just did with Sam just the other day, who was our guest tonight. So why don't we dig into it a little bit and let's see what we've got going on here. So Sam, if you'll do me the honors of bringing your screen up, let's go from there.
Okay, Jeff.
All right.
How's that?
That
are we good?
Yep, we are here. So remember, this is every week on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Please feel free to come or as a consequence be able to invite others or see them in the recorded capacity. And again, the most important thing about accelerating your financial freedom is everybody understands they want to be financially free. But the methodology that they typically deploy, or if you follow all those that have plans for you, like the bank and so on, you're probably not going to get financially free until you're pretty old. And really, you do not have to wait that long to make that happen. So that being the case, we want you to understand that being free has a lot to do with control of your cash flow and understanding how to make the most use of the money that passes through your hands. You don't have to be rich to be financially free. You just have to understand how to use money. Go ahead to the next screen if you would.
Sure.
All right, so tonight we've been running a series, and so we're on to the next couple of elements within the top 10 myths about money. And so tonight we're going to be discussing savings and choice, which of any of the rest of all these things listed here are really good for you, and why would you pick any of those things, and how and when do you want to even know about it. And then another biggie, why do not people consider their home as part of their retirement plan? It seems like the only time that it ever seemingly comes up is when you see some ad on TV for a reverse mortgage, but that's really a decision of last choice. So how do you make better use of that? So to cover this topic for us tonight, we've got Sam, and here's a little background on him. And as you can see, he's been around for a couple of days here in the industry. And what's nice is that he's had the chance, look, I'm being a flatterer there, but that he's had the chance to understand the business from one side of it to the other. It's not like I spent all my time as a broker, or all my years as this, or all my years as that. That he's had a good broad array to really understand the true meaning and functionality of money. So on that note, Sam, I'm going to give you the floor.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, Jeff. Again, it's really exciting for this opportunity, and I'm going to just get right to the facts. You know, we see it every day. We're saturated with advertising everywhere. What I call the pitch, usually on TV. They're pitching or promoting. I get mailers in the mail just like you do. It's beyond our imagination how we are overwhelmed with information, but not facts that can help us. And excuse me, saving is something so big because I run into clients that actually have never had a savings plan. Can you imagine? They're building their business. They spent 20, 30 years and they've got like 10,000 in an IRA because, you know, they hope one day to sell their company. But, you know, along the way they have, and this is not argumentative, it's just reality. People get suggestions by friends or their CPA or a planner, life insurance agents, but those are suggestions and no one really gets involved in the depth of a person's household, how they run their cash flow, et cetera. And we have really found something unique that helps people make decisions. So tonight we're going to really talk about, you know, how much do you save? Where do you save it? How do you find out how much discretion you even have? And what about these products? Every product has to have a penalty or a fee. It's just a way of life. When you buy real estate, there's a real estate commission. You buy insurance, there's an insurance commission. It's just a fact of life. However, getting out of something is the real key because there are what we call the back end fees for getting out of something too early. And who's going to dictate that? How do you know which product is better or best for you? And how can you get all the facts instead of hype and sift through that? So where do you even start to decide? I love this little thing. It was from the movie. It's great. And I've done the math and this checks out. Well, how do you do the math? Everything we do is about time, money, and math. Just think about it. What age are you? How much time do you have to retirement? You know, if you're 25 or you're 40, like my son that I'm trying to get started to put some money away, I told him at 25, if you put 100 a month away, by the time you wake up at 65, you're going to have a lot of money and you won't feel 100 a month. So how much time do you have between your current age and when do you want to get the money? Okay. Do you have a goal, a target as to when you're going to want the money? And then which do you prefer? Should I get a tax deduction on the savings, or it's called tax deferred, or how about tax free? All of these choices are part of your decision and your future. And yet most people plan on, when am I going to go on vacation? Which condo should I stay in? Should we stay on the water? Should we bring our friends? Should we bring our kids' friends? They spend more time thinking about that as opposed to planning their future. So we're going to start with, how much money do you set aside? How do you know how much? I'm going to show you a little quick slide in a few seconds. And our software analysis actually helps people decide how much discretion do you have. And that's something like, oh, I've got 100 extra, 200. I have a client making $10,000 a month, and he's going to have $100. If he does, he's in deep trouble. So everyone's different. We call it a financial DNA. Just like your health DNA, we can show you your financial DNA. Okay, so do you need the money sooner, later? Where do you put this money? Does it have a risk to principal, like stocks and bonds? I mean, in 2008 and 9, you know, we lost 35% in our IRAs, and we lost 25% in our real estate. Not a good feeling. I was there. I've been there. I made the mistakes. Now that we're using this particular software program, we can sort of like a check and balance. Do I want to do this? And that's how I came up with the 10 myths, and primarily, what if your money could talk? Would you listen? So the facts, the truth, and a simple approach to a complicated and a confusing topic, selecting the best choice for savings. So most people use a calculator. You know, the internet gives you access to everything, but a calculator is only a number. It's not operating in your day-to-day lifestyle. Things change, such as COVID-19 in March. So let's take a quick look. Once we get a client's information into our analysis software, we ask them all the, they fill out their form and how much is their living expenses and what they live on, et cetera, all their principal payments, interest payments, and we break it down and we show them a quick chart. And based on that, this particular individual, it showed that they had $350 a month discretion. That means they could blow it if they wanted. It wouldn't affect them. Now look at their lifestyle. Well, their lifestyle is the living expense, 59%. And when they looked at this, they said, wow, I didn't realize it. Well, that's not debt. That's lifestyle. And so, people live what you might say high on the hog occasionally, but our DNA worksheet worksheet and analysis enables you to review and analyze your discretionary income for savings. And again, every financial DNA is different. So let's talk just briefly about tax deferred and tax deduction. Everybody knows on this call, it's an IRA, a 401k, 403b for teachers. Simple, traditional, okay? It's what we believe in, and it may not be the best for you. And I'll give you a quick example. Here's $350 a month, the same $350 a month that the analysis found he had discretion. That's $4,200 a year of extra money he doesn't know what to do with, or the couple doesn't know what to do with. Okay? And at age 45, okay, in an IRA, there's penalties before 59 and a half. So you need to take those things in consideration. COVID-19 doesn't happen every year, but I'm pointing out, thankfully, that, if you need money in an IRA, a traditional IRA, there's a penalty. Okay. However, how many people that have IRAs that are under age 59 and a half ever heard of Section 72T in the IRA? Nobody. I started this at research. I went to back in 1991 at Merrill Lynch, and they were doing rollovers of IRAs. It has to be an IRA. But what if you're 52 years old, you lost your job, and you rolled over $100,000, from a retirement plan or a 401k or whatever it may be? Doesn't matter. And you look at that, and you're 52, and you go, well, I can't touch that, and I really need money. Well, let's pull 20 grand out. 20 grand times 10% is basically $2,000 penalty plus the income. So what does a CPA usually say? Don't do it. But the CPA didn't lose their job. So 401k and 403b, they have loans that are available, but not an IRA. So here's a person that leaves the job or got let go. They roll over the 100 grand, hypothetically, and they feel they can't touch it because they lost the power of loans in a 401k. Well, Section 72, and I've done at least in my career a dozen of them. I helped people on Hilton Head get a house. They moved to Hilton Head. They were renting. They rolled over $360,000 from a retirement plan. In fact, the guy actually worked for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and he was with them for 20 some odd years, and his wife was a teacher. Make a long story short, I helped them get in excess of $2,200 a month at age 54 as regular income with no penalty. And by the way, where is this really important? In getting a mortgage. The mortgage or the banks will let you use Section 72T income as long as it's 90 days in force. Okay, now there's some other caveats and all, and I'm not going to get into tonight, but think about this. How many people know that there's a 72T IRA program that allows you, whether you're 40, 45, 50, as long as you're under 59 and a half, you can start taking income monthly, quarterly, annually with no penalty. That's like having a part-time job and never go to work. So just quickly, I'm going to use you as a scapegoat. Jeff, have you ever heard of 72T, or have you, do you think something like that would be important to somebody?
It would be very important, and no, I had never heard of this particular opportunity.
Yeah, it's pretty unique. In fact, I've worked with CPAs where they go, well, let me check with my CPA. And they did, and they'd say, you can't do that. And then, of course, I provide all the information. Trust me, I was at Merrill Lynch, and I wasn't allowed to do anything illegal, or I wouldn't be there for 4.6 years. So anyway, this is a really exciting thing. And I get into this in the course. You know, as you know, we have the 90-day DNA course, the financial course that uses the software, and we go beyond just paying off debt. So let's move on. So now we've got a tax deduction, right? And that's based on this example. You're getting a tax deduction on $4,200. This is the traditional. And as an example, that's $113,400 of principal from 45 to 72. Now, why did I use 72? Because the rule changed. You don't have to take your distribution now until age 72. It used to be 70 and a half. The new law last year changed it to 72. They're continually to postpone it, but why? Because people are working longer. You know, you're finding executives at 75 years old because the experience and knowledge they have, and as long as they're healthy, which, by the way, that's another issue, health, wealth, and freedom, take care of yourself. And that's another aspect of the marketplace. And that's what happens on Wednesday evenings. The knowledge you get on Wednesdays is just like you're getting here, only in the wealth side. So look at this, the standard industry withdrawal that everybody shows, they're taught to show 4%. Can you take out more? You can take whatever you want. You're going to pay the 10%? No, you're not going to pay the 10% at 59.5. So there's no 10% penalty. But the reason they use 4% is to show you it will last longer. Well, that's great. But if I need 35 grand to save my house, am I going to say, oh, if I take more than 11,874, I'm going to pay more tax? No. The issue is after 59.5, you can take what you want, but they show you income for life. Assuming you'll never need more than 11,874 until you're 72 or until your age 100. So you also pay tax on the income. Now think about that. I don't know what you all feel, but it doesn't matter whose administration. But 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 15 years from now, who knows what the tax rates are going to be? You don't know. So the point I'm making here is, why not consider a Roth IRA? Why is everybody jumping on, you need the tax deduction? Well, we call that tax on the seed or tax on the crop. I'd rather pay tax on the seed. So I'm paying tax on $4,200, which is on what I'm putting away in the Roth. I have to pay tax on that. But when I go to get the income, it's the same money. It's the same example, 11,874. It's tax-free. So if the rate is 33%, which it could be, and by the way, when I got into business in the 70s, the highest tax rate was 70%. I know it's hard for many of you young people to realize that, but you can look it up. And one of the reasons I learned oil and gas tax credits, and I got in that business for 4 years. I learned because the doctors I was dealing with rather put 50 grand into an oil well and get a tax credit and then get income. So anyway, the point I'm making is, how do you make all these decisions? Most financial planners, most brokers are not getting into an educational. They'll say, I'd recommend you take a write-off, et cetera, et cetera. And the reason I have cash value life insurance up there, we're not going to get into that tonight, but keep in mind, there are reasons for cash value life insurance. It is a tax-free investment, and it has a tax-free death benefit. So in some cases, not all, and that's, again, the help of our DNA free analysis. When we see your cash flow, what you're spending, what your debt is, what your discretionary income is, and then start to evaluate which is the best choice. Okay, so we start with last 2 weeks ago, we said, here's the client. They have 6 debts. How do they know how much money they have left after taking care of all this? You know, the wife says, well, I think we got 150. It wound up to be 500 in this case. And again, the factorial math, there's no way you can figure out which one to pay, when to pay, etc. So what's an IRA 72T? So we talked about the traditional IRA, the tax-free IRA, Roth, and the traditional IRA 72T, especially in rollovers. So if you run into a situation like COVID and there's clients that have sitting cash in a 401k, they lost their job, they don't want to leave it in the 401k. They roll it to their own traditional IRA that is a tax-free exchange. However, they can't get income. They can't get a job. If they knew, as this example, on $300,000, that's $1,290 a month, no penalty, and you can stop the income after 5 years. So you have to take it for 5 years. But after 5 years, as long as you hit 59.5. So if you were 52, you'd have to take the income for 7.5 years. Okay, but it's not a big deal. You can freeze it at age 59.5 or 60 to make it simple and let it grow back to 72. Meanwhile, you're collecting $1,290 a month. That could be a mortgage payment. Okay, if you lost your job, you're going to lose your house. That's if you still have a mortgage. And our program shows how you can have no debt and no mortgage within 6 to 10 years instead of age 72 still paying a mortgage of $2,000 a month. So these type of choices are very hard to get on the internet and get this knowledge, especially if it's just generic. In other words, it's not relative to the exact numbers like you see here that a client or a prospect has put on the worksheet, and we analyze it free and discuss all these options. And then if they want to try this for 90 days, they're able to take a course that involves all of the things I showed you. Why? Because of my experience. I made the mistakes. We don't have enough time to talk about my mistakes, but I was approached to use the software in 2003, 2005, and I was heavily in the mortgage business. I should have looked at it. I didn't have time. Isn't that funny? We all say, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money, you know, but yet you do. You just don't know it.
You know, the other thing too, Sam, to interject is when you say you made your mistakes, what were you not shown? I don't know how much it was your mistake as much as it was you were prevented from learning about other alternatives. And some of these alternatives, you know, I'm your advisor. Would I suggest something that might move money away from me that I am making commission on or something? I don't think so.
Right. Well, again, being able to have a software analysis that helps. You know, if I would have went in and done this for myself in 2003 and 5, and, you know, we were making some really good money back then, and I had a big house, 4,000 square feet, and I was just, you know, hey, I'm going to roll it in 2 years and get tax-free almost $300,000, part of my retirement plan. The only problem I had was that 2008 and 9 showed up. So anyway, it's really important to get the facts to make the choices. Okay. Actually, at this point, I'd really like to, if you could unmute Chuck. Chuck had a really interesting scenario. It's very involved, but just to keep it simple and generic so that we're not really picking on him. The point is Chuck has had a goal to retire at 62. And every time a year went by, something knocked him backward. Okay. Yeah. Chuck, are you there?
I am, Sam.
Oh, okay, great. So Chuck, in relative to what we're talking about, you know, with the, you had your business and all, and you've rolled money over into your IRA and not not using any numbers. But the point was, is before you ran into me as a referral, and you actually were able to, it's funny, I used the word able, right, Chuck? I'll call you back when I'm able. So I'm sorry about that. So anyway, what's interesting with Chuck is he had the goals, but he didn't know how to find the answers. And so he was referred to me and we talked, et cetera, et cetera. And then Chuck, why don't you give a quick scenario how, you've been forward and backward and now you're leaps ahead of where you wanted to be.
Yeah, absolutely, Sam. And no, I appreciate the opportunity to tell the story. So when I met you a couple of years ago, my wife and I had just made a decision. We had just sold our shares in a business in Austin, Texas. It wasn't a good ending to the story, but we moved to Hilton Head Island, and we were determined to get to the place of our dreams, but get here about 10 years before we had planned, or about 10 years before quote unquote retirement age. And quite frankly, I came here without a job. I did take some work when I got here, but as you know, it wasn't the work that I had really wanted. But anyway, when we met, I had a very defined goal about retiring at 62. And you know how determined I was to do that. And but really didn't have the roadmap and the plan. And it was just, it's so serendipitous that we met because you had the roadmap, you had the plan, you had the course. And we're all a bit skeptical, and I had to convince my wife that this was worth, you shared enough to make me really intrigued by it. But we took the course, and it was a small investment to the best decision that we ever made, because right away I learned, between you sharing the myths that that we're so conditioned to believe, as well as the opportunity that the software had to give us the platform. It just changed our life. And now fast forward 2 years, and including leaving that job that I took just as a placeholder, if you will. I because we were using the software and had taken your course, I was able to, in a word, ask the software if leaving the job to do what I wanted to do could make sense. And guess what? The software said yes. I was able to make that decision, make, quite frankly, the best decision, one of the best decisions I ever made. And now fast forward 2 years later, life has changed in a good way, dramatically. We are on course to hit the retirement goal that we had. And I know this because the software tells me every day. And here's the funny part, and it's not so funny, is my wife winds up losing her job during COVID. And we go back and we ask the software, are we going to be okay? And the software says yes. And now we know, we're believers, and we know. And in all of this, which included moving to Hilton Head, moving into a condo that we had bought a few years earlier, which really wasn't suited for us long-term, and buying another one, refinancing, having 2 30-year mortgages, buying a new car during all of this, and spending more money than we ever imagined on a brand new car. And all of this in the system with the course, and we are going to be debt-free in 6.2 years, I believe, maybe 6.6 years. It fluctuates a little bit because we play with the numbers and we do some if-then statements, but 2 30-year mortgages and a brand new car loan, and we're going to be debt-free in 6.6 years.
Right. And that's pretty amazing, because you had fear. You were faced with fear and the unknown, and it's pretty scary. And I was there with my wife in 2009 in the same scenario, but I didn't have the software where I could say, okay, I can do a rollover, I can do this. In fact, we even looked at using the software, remember, doing a rollover for you and using 72T because you're not 59.5, remember? And we said, you know what? It'll help, but you didn't need to do it right away, right?
Nope. Well, and that's the point of all of this, and it's something that you and I talk about all the time, is now whenever anything occurs, a situation occurs. I'll give you, for instance, my son, my middle son, is getting married in 2 years, so we want to save some money towards that. Whenever a situation comes up like this, the first thing my wife and I do is we ask the software, what if? What if we wanted to save?
What if your money could talk, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Would you listen?
Well, here's the best thing. I have a goal of retiring in 6 years, and right now we were at 6.2. We asked the software if we wanted to save $15,000 extra in 2 years, could we do it? And the software came back and said, well, your 6.2 is going to increase to 6.6 years. And I said,
4 months, just 4 months difference to accumulate. And here's the real key though. It shows you every week, when to send the money over to that savings account that you're saving for the wedding, doesn't it?
Exactly.
It's unbelievable. So,
well,
Jeff,
I was saying, without
Jeff,
to think about saving $15,000, it sounds so daunting, right? Buying a new car sounds daunting, but if you just get to the discipline of asking the software, it amazing the difference. Amazing.
Well, and also you would try to think where, okay, the software tells me I can do this, but where am I going to get the money? I mean, how would you even think of what you're doing and how you would carve out $15,000 out of that?
It's funny, Jeff, because one of the things Sam knows is, we live here on Hilton Head Island with him, and we have a wonderful lifestyle. I call it a very rich life, and rich in quotes, because it's not just rich in money, it's rich in lifestyle. And that extra 15,000 and the 4 months, it doesn't change our lifestyle one bit. That's the best part.
Right. We've talked about this in prior shows, which I know you have not attended, and I've been engaged with this software in its original incarnation before it kind of disappeared from the market for a little while. And after a number of years, I started to have clients tell me that they love the software, and I assumed because of what you described, getting out of all these debts. But then because they owned it long enough, they said, no, we love it because it saved our marriage.
Right. That's true. Because financial stress.
Well, stress in general, each under their own version of stress. And then how do you discuss, you neither know what's going on. How are you going to discuss with your spouse about money when neither of you know which end is up?
Right.
So it saves you a lot of problems and arguments that aren't even necessary.
Right. So, well, thank you, Chuck, so much. I appreciate that input. It is exciting when I talk to my clients pretty much at least once a month, if not, once a week. But we heard Ellen 2 weeks ago, and she owns a business for years. And the point I'm making is she never knew really where she was financially until she started the program and then purchased the software. So I'd like to really wrap up with I said I was going to do a tax-free advantage to the residents, but when I did all my slides on that, it took almost 35 minutes, and it really deserves a full 1 hour presentation on that. There's so many aspects on people that are renting and not realizing that just get into a house, get into a condo, get on a program and own your house in 10 years and move to another one. So that tax-free rollover up to $500,000. By the time you reach 65, you could have $1 million tax-free with your own residence. Now, some people don't want to move, but that's not my point. Looking at the math, sometimes, and what if your money could talk and it helps you, you will make better decisions. Not that you'll do it, but at least you can see the difference. So I just want to point out with this screenshot, how do you find out which program is best for you? Do you pay down debt? Do you start a retirement plan? Which retirement plan? A Roth, a traditional tax deductible, pay the tax later? How do you get started? Well, we have a simple DNA worksheet. You can send it to me. I review it. I run the analysis. We set up an appointment for Q&A. You see your numbers, which it's amazing when you see your numbers, and I could give Chuck another hour. He could talk about when he saw his real numbers. So that's the power of this. So we welcome your interest. And next week, I just want to point out, this is what we'll be talking about next Thursday, is credit scores. In fact, without even getting into numbers, most of my clients have increased their credit scores 60 to 100 points using the software. And we teach them what the banks are looking for and what the mid-score. A lot of people don't even understand mid-score for banking mortgages, but they drop the high, they drop the low. So you could have a 740 on Experian, but the mid-score after you drop the high and the low is 680. That means you're into an FHA loan. And if you're looking for a jumbo loan under 700, you're not going to get a 3% rate. How do you find all this out? Well, you're not going to find it out from the mortgage broker or the banker. They're just going to say, I'm sorry, I can't give you the loan. Not, let me tell you how I can get you the loan. Give me about 90 to 120 days and we'll get you the loan. And then also Social Security income, another thing that Chuck and Renee have talked about, and we went in and used the power of how much are we going to get at 62 versus waiting, and what could we do with that money? Again, another issue that the software helps. So if you're between the ages of 25 and 60, how do you know when to retire? What's your goal? How do you know? And, Chuck had the goal, but he didn't see the numbers. And so we're going to have a special session somewhere in the next couple of weeks on how can your residents generate $500,000 tax-free, okay, for adding to your retirement plan. And the numbers and the presentation on this really deserves more than 15 minutes. And so I wasn't able to actually squeeze it in. But next week, I think this will be really educational on how to prepare to get a mortgage, a refi. Should you refi? I'll tell you, the testimonials we have with this is just remarkable. So anyway, Jane, are you still with us? I thought maybe you might have a few comments on the Roth. And
yes, I'm still here. I think the best description, as your guest said earlier, is that it really gives you a roadmap. You know where you are at all times. And I will dig out what my credit score was last year and what it is today. I think it's like 804 today, and I think it was just over 700 last year. And it's pretty much one year, that I've been on this program. But you just never know where you are in place and time until you actually get that roadmap. It's in front of you, and then you can see the numbers, like you said, every day. You know how much time it's going to take you to become debt-free. It's very empowering.
Yeah, well, definitely thank you for that. And it's really great to see how you just in less than 2 months, how working with us on the DNA side of knowledge, how to use the program. And that's another thing that Jeff says, you can buy it, but how do you use it? Exactly. And that's why we created the 90-day course to give people a chance. And just as a close, a little bit of a pitch, if you will, it's only $495 for the course for 90 days using it. So anyway, Jeff, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Again, that was great tonight, Sam. I do appreciate you spending some quality time with us. I'm going to take the screen.
Well, thank you.
Real quick. And encourage everyone to definitely get up on our site here, get over on the wealth page, take a good look at all this information that's on here. And then, take a look at some of the past videos. You'll start to learn a lot about money. In fact, even if you scroll to the far bottom, you'll really start to learn about money. We really go through a lot of the bottom line of how money's created, why it exists, and things you never ever learn about. But what's most important is what Sam's talking about, because this is how it applies to you, how you can use the bank systems to your advantage. And historically, you're not going to learn that because it's more profitable for them to take 30 years to pay off a mortgage instead of to pay it off in 5. But obviously, if I can pay it off in 5, that mechanism exists. I just wasn't told about how to do it. And so that's what's so great about what Sam's up to, is to really let you know all the inside baseball that the power people that want to control you and or control your money are preventing you from learning about it. They certainly don't teach it in school. So Sam, thanks so much for tonight.
Well, thank you guys, and thank you, Chuck, Jane, thank you, Joan, thank you, Joe, and especially thank you, Jeff, for the opportunity.